And we got why Saitama versus Sans is closer than you think. Let's get it. Ain't this a gaming character, dude? Let's get it.
If you take another step forward, you are really not gonna like what happens next.
Okay.
Let's check it out. Let's hear his perspective and all this type stuff, bro. But y'all know I'm going with Saitama. But you know, this is a gaming character, so I don't know too much about him.
This is why I never make promises.
All right, let's just get to the point. You know him, you love him, Mr. Stronger Than You himself, the sensation of your screen who makes the view counter scream, Sans Funny Bone Man, Undertale. Now, look, we've talked about this guy a lot. Probably more than any reasonable, tax-paying adult should. But among all the Sans fights we've covered, there's always been something of a Goldilocks problem with our favorite skeleton. Sans fights tend to be weird. They either end up with an outcome so confusing it might as well be written in Greek, or he's literally fighting Goku. So today, I'd like to pose a topic that actually explores how one Sans Undertale would realistically stack up against the vast majority of strong fictional characters. No limitless hacks battle, no blowing up the universe, just Sans versus the last member of modern anime's holy trinity of but could he beat them though? The One Punch Man himself, Saitama. Now, I'll be honest, there isn't much narrative reason for these two to fight. They're both the funny haha overpowered guy, notoriously apathetic, dangerous, bald, and yeah, Saitama does have a thing for punching monsters. But really, I didn't pick Mr. One Frame Man over here today for his deep parallels with Sans. I picked him because he's extremely easy to compare with Undertale's main protagonist, Frisk. Think about it. Both train through mundane tasks like push-ups or grinding in an RPG, both awaken the hidden potential of the indomitable human spirit, both eventually start one-shotting monsters, effortlessly steamrolling a walking manifestation of anime hero-villain tropes, before each of them ends up facing down their only real challenge against a white and blue guy from a dying timeline with a special ability designed to perfectly counter their unstoppable power. Honestly, Genocide Frisk is basically just evil Saitama. They both even have time travel powers and end up running the Fade with God. Honestly, that alone could be its own video, but for today, that comparison matters because if Frisk is a lot like Saitama, then understanding why Sans became the infamous immovable object to Frisk's unstoppable force should tell us how he'd stack up against someone so similar. And honestly, the answer is pretty simple. Sans' entire purpose as a final boss is to invalidate everything traditionally strong characters rely on. He is the antithesis of absolutes, the embodiment of half measures, a walking slap to the face of any hardworking power leveler. On a no mercy run, your goal is simple: gain XP, get stronger, and obliterate everything. But the one thing, the only thing that can stop you is this goober with one attack and one defense. By all logic, he should be the weakest thing in the game. He's explicitly introduced as the easiest enemy. Someone so frail, a single hit should end him forever. And yet, that very weakness is what makes him one of the most effective counters to an overpowered character. Because Sans is a cheater. A video game character who knows he's in a video game. Unlike your typical Mario or Kratos, Sans has somehow become aware that his reality is being manipulated by forces beyond him. He doesn't know our names or faces, but he knows we, the anomaly, exists. And that awareness sends him spiraling into apathy. But more importantly, it lets him glimpse the world for what it really is. Ones and zeros, and once he sees the game for what it is, he can finally treat the rules like a game. And that lets him turn his greatest weakness into his greatest strength. To make an easy example, if I punched Sans, he'd probably die. If Saitama punched Sans, he'd also probably die. His physical durability is non-existent. But because Sans doesn't rely on his physical stats, both metaphorically and literally sidestepping the normal rules of his world, to him, the legendary one punch is just as useful as a you or me punch. Raw strength becomes irrelevant. Basically, imagine your universe works kind of like Pokemon. Everyone takes turns, and you have your little menu of moves, but then the Pokemon you're trying to catch suddenly becomes self-aware and goes, "Actually, no! I'm not gonna stand here while you select your level 100 God Beam of Death." That's basically the idea behind Sans' powers. He moves outside of traditional turn-based timing in a turn-based universe, using that game logic against you. Now, the big confusion people often have at this point is that characters like Saitama are not turn-based. Saitama isn't bound by...
Yeah, but I think Saitama also suck at playing video games. We need King in here now. Now we need King.
RPG rules.
Yeah, we need King now. Saitama losing every game, like fighting games, I get, but we need King now. We need King.
So surely he can just obliterate Sans before the guy ever starts his Hackerman shenanigans. And like with most broken hacks type abilities, that confusion is completely understandable. So let's explain it piece by piece. In Undertale, combat happens on the bullet board, this white box where you dodge attacks. For monsters like Sans to use magic, they apply this bullet board to an enemy. It's something so natural to them that they put bullet boards in their birthday cards. And in turn, it's a canon part of their world, not just a game mechanic. Think of it like a domain expansion from JJK. When a monster pulls you into the board, your soul, represented by this little heart, is exposed, and you're forced to play by turn-based game logic, whether you like it or not. We know the board itself is causing the turn-based side effects, as during the good ending, when Frisk is paralyzed by Asriel, they can't swap between their physical action buttons, seen at the bottom of the screen, but their soul can still dodge the opponent's attacks just fine. Essentially, the board enforces this system by splitting physical movements and soul-based dodging. Meaning, in theory, even someone like Saitama or Superman could be forced into a Sans-style battle unless they have a specific counter to this monster magic.
Just punch. I think Saitama, all he gotta do is just punch out of it. You know, it ain't gonna make sense, but Saitama just punch through the things and just. That's just how Saitama is. That's how the creator made him. He's just gonna punch through stuff that just punch through stuff. The rules, like you playing with saying his rule, but Saitama don't care. He just gonna punch through it and get out of him.
And once the board is active, only 3 questions matter. Can Sans hurt Saitama? Can Saitama hit Sans? And can Saitama bypass the board?
I think Saitama just gonna punch through the board and just get out of there and be on his way. I mean, that's how I see it. Y'all are gonna be in something weird and funny.
Let's start with the big one. Hurting Saitama. The intuitive answer is no. Saitama's often treated as being basically indestructible. A huge chunk of the internet already thinks the guy is straight up omnipotent. And when he's sneezing away planets or casually tanking gamma ray bursts, it's easy to see why. However, to make this answer as uncontroversial as possible and avoid putting a hard number on Saitama that would just make everyone mad, at the absolute bare minimum, we know with 100% certainty that Saitama can get hurt. When the dude himself says on the manga panel that he got hurt before Murata proceeds to write every possible combination of the phrase evenly matched to explain his pitch battle with CFG, it's fair to say Saitama is absurdly strong, but just not completely invulnerable. And that puts him well within Sans' favorite demographic, because Sans deals damage through manipulating the game's damage formula to bypass stats, turning his pitiful one attack into something far more dangerous. He does this with 3 types of damage: soul, frame, and karma.
I mean, if he can copy Saitama, well, let me just see where he's going. But if he can copy Saitama, then it's possible. But that's just how I'm going. But let's go.
Soul damage is what every monster can do. Bullet board attacks naturally target the soul. It's what lets monsters hurt beings with seemingly infinite defense, like the Mad Dummy. Frame damage is an abbreviation of Sans' ability to remove invincibility frames. No matter what gear or stats you have, Sans will always deal 1 damage per frame against Frisk. This is how he can hurt someone who one-shot nearly everyone else in their entire world with casual ease. And this frame damage pairs perfectly with his final damage method, Karma. Karma is like a poison, a mystical damage over time effect determined by your sins. A pure-hearted character like Saitama might be totally unaffected by Karma, while a morally dubious Omni-Man type character could be fatally wounded from a single exposure. So, understanding the layers to Sans' durability negation, how does it apply to Saitama? Well, to rule out the obvious, soul and karma damage probably wouldn't work. Saitama is treated as the pinnacle of heroism, someone who wouldn't unalive anyone with a shred of humanity. And historically, he's resisted all sorts of karma-like negation in the past, ranging from poison to radiation, gravity, and, depression? Plus, a character like Phoenix Man, who could literally pull heroes into his own spiritual mind world, destroying their soul like Mahito, was scared to even touch Saitama. Although, to be fair, I'd be scared too if Saitama magically barged into my alternate reality.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, bro just knocked it open.
Just to complain that I'm being too noisy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, all Saitama gotta do is just break the board thing and just get out of there and just be on his way. He ain't finna fight him. He just finna. That's how I see it, man. It's Saitama, bro. It always gonna be something weird and just silly.
But frame damage is a different story. We know that Sans always deals 1 HP of damage to Frisk, no matter how high their defense is. And we also know that Sans defeated Flowey, someone who doesn't have a soul to target. Meaning, frame damage is likely, in some part, physical negation. As a baseline, Frisk, amped by their soul, is insanely strong. One regular human is said to equal the strength of all monsters combined, with each of those 10,000 or so monsters having feats ranging in the building levels. So Sans is already negating at least town-level durability effortlessly. But the tricky thing here, though, is that Frisk becomes way stronger than that. After gaining just 1 more level and walking literally 5 feet past Sans' grave, they proceed to destroy the entire Undertale multiverse with a single attack, doing a comically large 10 Sept10 Septuagentillion damage. That number is unimaginably massive. We're talking 235 zeros. I have no reference to put this into scale for you. There is no reference for how big that number is. The amount of atoms in the universe is only 80 zeros. But I'll make my next statement really clear here by saying Sans does not scale to this. Frisk, objectively, only reaches that tier after beating Sans, reaching the absolute determination and letting go of their emotional ties. That's the whole no mercy narrative. And Sans, who struggled against base Flowey, clearly doesn't match up to his stronger universal variants like Photoshop Flowey or Azrael either. However, everything between minimum town level and that analog horror nightmare of a number is basically debatable. Did Frisk go from building busting all the way to multiversal in one hallway? I mean, maybe, but it's definitely not clear cut. We legitimately just don't know how strong Frisk was at this point. So, of course, Saitama, and basically most of fiction, fits snugly into that gargantuan range of interpretation. But whether you think Saitama is blowing up planets, stars, or entire galaxies with his punches, unless you literally think he's above the universe, there's at least some debate to be had here. Now, obviously, if you stretch every vague, endless, or limitless statement around Saitama to its utmost extreme, it's not impossible to argue he might be nearing those universal, infinitely beyond Sans comprehension type levels. But realistically, that kind of power in OPM seems to be reserved for God, an actual transcendent 4D type being that Saitama objectively has not surpassed yet. Don't get me wrong, he probably will, it's kind of the whole point of his story, but in the Big 25, Saitama is just barely leaving an arc where he was equal to Cosmic Fear Garo, someone who got all of his power from a single hand of God. So it's at least plausible that a highball vaguely below Universal Sans can hurt Saitama. But can Saitama hurt Sans? Well, this depends entirely on...
The question is this, do Saitama even want to... Wait, did he just say... Do Saitama even want to hurt him?
How you interpret Sans' dodging mechanic. Some people like to drop the whole cheater thing halfway through and assume that Sans is literally dodging Frisk's attacks with pure speed like some sort of anime battle. Obviously, if you believe this, the fight is over instantly. One Punch Man is so comedically faster than the speed of light that the manga panels themselves are often given actual timestamps, telling us exactly how many microseconds it's been since a character jumped across the entire globe or created a constellation out of shattered planetoids. But personally, I don't agree with that interpretation of Sans. It feels much more like an edgy 2015 fanon view built around the memes that simply doesn't match Undertale's lore. Sans is lazy, apathetic, someone all about putting in the least effort possible. His character both wouldn't and probably couldn't fight like those radical fan animations portray. But how then is Sans weaving every attack like he's Floyd Funny Bone Mayweather? Well, remember how I mentioned that Frisk is shown to control the action buttons using their physical body? Imagine what would happen if Sans attempted to abuse that mechanic. You hit the attack button, the animation plays, it always takes the same amount of time no matter how fast you mash, then Sans just scoots out of the way before it's hit. This animation dodge is a far more accurate concept for what Sans is doing. It actually works with his meta-breaking narrative, and it bolsters his dodge to effectively the inaccessible speed tier, used to describe things moving in zero time. Sans may not be faster than light, but he's faster than action. As long as the bullet board is up, no one else can break turn order without reality warping their way around monster magic itself. And Sans actually has arguments to support this crazy speed interpretation. In the plot of Undertale, Sans' biggest recurring joke is that he takes shortcuts in the wrong direction that always lead to the right area. He stands in two places at once, pranks you across space and time with quantum mechanics, and even freezes the entire game to interrogate you about a talking flower. All these frozen time moments blur the line between jokes and real powers, which is exactly the point of Sans' character. So, knowing all that, there are two possible ways this fight could end. In Scenario A, Saitama is oblivious to Sans' true nature, gets yoinked into the bullet board, and is immediately thrown into Sans' strongest attack. Saitama, someone notoriously awful at video games who loves taking hits head-on like he's the durability merchant, takes one look at the floating skulls, asks,
"What's the big idea?"
and is immediately deleted before he even realizes it's an attack. But in Scenario B, Saitama survives the initial onslaught, locks in, and immediately starts adapting. This is Saitama's real superpower, his limitless adaptation. During the Garo fight, where it's explained that by removing his limiter, Saitama always gets stronger every moment, an often overlooked detail is that Saitama also began subconsciously copying Garo's fighting techniques, skills so advanced that ancient masters couldn't comprehend them just so Saitama could beat the guy. So if Sans doesn't drop the guy in his first few turns, or maybe catch him with a lucky mercy kill, Saitama likely just Maharagas his way through the entire fight, or figures out some absurd move to hit Sans regardless of the rules. Even Sans' most special attack, where he just refuses to end his own turn, forcing a permanent stalemate, wouldn't save him, as Saitama's growth would eventually just brute force away past the board, like inventing a whole new one-punch button. Realistically,
Yeah, I said like all he gotta do is just punch out the board, right? Punch through the board. And
that's why the fight is so interesting. Sans exists to defeat strong characters with cheats, and Saitama exists to defeat cheat characters with strong. Both characters are vague enough to be hyped to similar massive levels, with a glazed Sans unironically having better arguments to reach his respective god tiers than a current glazed Saitama, while on the flip side, their more consistent lower ends paint the opposite picture of a far more consistent One Punch Man who needs less mental gymnastics to catch a win. It really is a perfect example of how Sans hacks can be interpreted to fight many OP characters, without just pulling the he beat Kara or Azrael arguments that are just plainly wrong. The real winner of this fight, though, is actually pretty straightforward. During the finale of Saitama's fight with Cosmic Fear Garo, he copied one other impossible to learn technique, the anti-particle time leap. Using this, he can enter the time stream, go backwards through reality, and just like Frisk, prevent the ominous future from ever happening. Doing this lets Saitama perform his most useful attack in the entire manga, the Zero Punch, a punch thrown in the future that lands in the past, meaning it's acausal. It happens not just in zero time.
What it is? Absolutely unavoidable. It's absolutely unavoidable.
Time, but outside of time altogether. This attack is unironically so fast that Sans has no arguments against it. And it's not even difficult for Saitama to do. He saw it one time,
absolutely unavoidable.
It, then crapped out an immeasurable speed punch. So if Prime Saitama's not goofing around, he'd obviously take this. And with future god scaling, the gap's only getting wider. But if you genuinely started thinking this bag of bones stood a chance, well, maybe it really was closer than you thought.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all, I like that, man. Game versus game. You already know. League of Legends, not a good stuff. Let's go.